Seri narrates that on her first birthday, instead of choosing one of the traditional items meant to represent her future, she grabbed her father's hand. Ever since, she's believed she always makes the right decisions, even naming her company, Seri's Choice. But now, stranded in the DMZ after choosing not to trust the directions of a North Korean soldier she just met, her luck seems to have run out. She starts to wonder if she's really as lucky and wise as she always thought. After walking all night, she stumbles into a North Korean village. Realizing she needs an ally, she plays the damsel in distress when Jung-hyuk saves her from being run over by a military vehicle. She quickly pretends to be innocent and scared, hoping it will make him help her. She believes her helpless act is charming him. He brings her to his home and cooks ramyun from scratch. Suspicious, Seri pretends it's custom in South Korea for the guest to offer the host the first bite, trying to get him to test the food first. She watches him closely, unsure if the food is safe and wanting him to eat it first. Jung-hyuk responds with his trademark deadpan stare, "Do I look like an idiot?" but agrees that trusting a total stranger is unwise, especially one with such a far-fetched story about landing in the DMZ. Seri insists she's super famous in South Korea, though she refuses to share her name, saying it would only shock him if he googled her. Jung-hyuk dryly replies they don't have internet. Seri is caught off guard and doesn't know how to keep bragging without sounding silly. Back in Seoul, Seri's family is still keeping her disappearance out of the media. Her father, Chairman Yu, wants to launch a private investigation, while her brothers hope she stays gone, making room for them to claim control of Queen's Corp. Each brother starts to see a future where Seri is no longer in their way. Seri tells Jung-hyuk to treat her well, promising a generous reward once she returns home. He simply says he's not interested. Chisu, one of Jung-hyuk's squad members, knocks at the gate, excitedly announcing that the South Korean woman was found dead near Mount Suseok. He figures this means they're off the hook and lists everyone's blunders, Yoondong crying over a letter from his mom, Jomok watching a band K-drama, Chisu drinking on duty, and Jung-hyuk stepping on a landmine. Then he notices Seri standing casually at the door, having heard everything. The squad is stunned and embarrassed as Seri calmly looks at them, amused. Inside, Seri and Chisu bicker about whether she's a spy. She talks to him like he's a bit slow, and poor Jung-hyuk just looks like he's developing a migraine. He sits silently, clearly annoyed by the noise and chaos in his house. Soon, the whole squad arrives to share the good news, only to be floored by Seri's presence. She immediately figures out who each of them is and what they were doing when she escaped. Jomok gets the stink eye from the others for geeking out when she mentions knowing the stars of Stairway to Heaven. He can't help smiling, impressed that a real celebrity knows his favorite show. Seri takes charge, insisting they take her back to where she landed so she can return home. Chisu suggests letting her electrocute herself on the newly repaired fence, but Jung-hyuk explains that since they've completed their DMZ duty, they can't re-enter the zone. When Seri asks about other options, Chisu jokes about burying her, prompting her to offer to teach him South Korean-style cursing. She gets frustrated but jokes back, trying to stay in control of the situation. She questions why they haven't taken her to the State Security Department, SSD, and from their awkward silence, deduces they're afraid she'll rat them out. Jomok proposes an alternative. His uncle makes boat-to-boat runs to international waters, and one is scheduled in 3 days. Seri is surprised they even have such a risky escape plan ready. Seri groans, saying she has an important shareholder meeting. Junghyuk snaps that she's the one who got lost and should be more apologetic. He offers her a choice: he can turn her in now, or she can wait 3 days, on the condition that she follows their rules. She must stay inside, avoid influencing them with South Korean ideas, and once home, never tell anyone about this. Seri agrees, promising to suffer convenient amnesia. Jomok nods knowingly. South Koreans get amnesia all the time in dramas. They all laugh a little, even though the situation is still serious. Her most outlandish claim? That she eats meat with 2 meals a day. Jisoo scoffs at her tall tales, and Seri pretends to be faint with hunger, batting her eyes at Junghyuk. She exaggerates her hunger just to annoy them and maybe get more food. Back in Seoul, Secretary Hong meets Suchan, an insurance salesman Seri recently signed a contract with. Suchan boasts about antagonizing his boss since he's now indispensable. Hong drops the news that Seri is missing, and Suchan goes pale. He heads to church to pray for her safe return, while Haeji, also praying, wishes for the opposite. They both kneel in silence, unaware they're praying for opposite things. In the village, the women salt their cabbage harvest for kimchi making. Young A, wife of the senior colonel and leader among the village women, reminds everyone that Captain Ri returns today. They've stocked his house with food, meat, and side dishes. Seri is fascinated by the concept of a kimchi cellar, but Junghyuk quickly silences her before the conversation veers toward South Korea. Yundong, from an even smaller village, admires Junghyuk's coal briquette cooking, calling it modern. Seri looks confused, but doesn't comment, realizing she's truly in a different world. As they all eat, passing Seri their meat, Junghyuk informs her they'll return to duty after lunch. She panics at being left alone, so he shows her his old phone and tells her to dial 5 in case of emergency. She obeys, sort of, but ends up calling him over body wash, shampoo, and her desperate need for a scented candle. She clearly doesn't know how to live without her daily comforts. Junghyuk patiently explains how to heat bath water in a cauldron and hang a plastic sheet for a DIY sauna. It's a lot of effort, but Seri admits it's a nice experience. She finally relaxes a bit, enjoying the simple way of living. Meanwhile, Junghyuk gets word that the Tomb Raiders were killed in the Mount Suseo crash. At the SSD, he finds Chulkang already there. The senior colonel offers him contraband Maxim Gold coffee, but Junghyuk declines and asks to investigate the crash, wondering if it was orchestrated. Chulkang reluctantly grants permission but suggests he go to the trial bureau in Pyongyang. Junghyuk quietly makes a mental note to be careful around Chulkang. After Junghyuk leaves, Chulkang warns the senior colonel that Junghyuk may have high-level backing. They shift focus to Gu Seung-jun, who has scammed Sehyang and now seeks asylum in North Korea. Seung-jun signs a contract offering double the normal bribe in exchange for luxurious treatment, including a mansion, bodyguards, and access to golf and casinos. He warns that his fortune is offshore and inaccessible if he dies. He smiles confidently, knowing exactly how to buy his safety. That night, the electricity is cut in the village. Seri, frightened by noises, grabs a vase as a weapon. Thankfully, it's just Junghyuk, returning with the candle she asked for. When she bursts into tears, he awkwardly holds out the candle. She sobs that she wanted a scented candle and apologizes for the outburst. He stands still, unsure how to comfort her, but doesn't leave. Elsewhere, Wol-suk argues with her husband about promotions. He advises her to suck up to Young A, so she does, only to find other women there with the same idea. One even peddles a stationary bike to power the TV. Everyone is trying to win Young A's favor in their own way. At home, Seri discusses stocks with Jung-hyuk, admitting she once gave a friend money to invest and lost it all. She cries again, ashamed of crying in front of a stranger, so Jung-hyuk blows out the candle and says it's okay now, he can't see her. His small gesture makes her feel understood, even without many words. Before leaving for Pyongyang, Jung-hyuk tells her he might not be back before her departure. When she asks his name to repay the favor someday, he declines. She finds a bag of gifts he bought, body wash, shampoo, skincare, lingerie, all from a South Korean vendor. She's touched, realizing he paid attention to everything she mentioned. Arriving in Pyongyang, Jung-hyuk is detained by the trial bureau. He is accused of orchestrating the Tomb Raiders' deaths and threatened with fabricated charges. Calmly, he tells the director he'll be held accountable for his words. Just then, a general storms in, kicks the director, and orders Jung-hyuk released. He's the only surviving son of the powerful directory of the General Political Bureau. Everyone in the room suddenly treats him with a lot more respect. Panicked, the trial bureau director calls Chul-kang. Turns out, Jung-hyuk's brother Moo-hyuk was someone Chul-kang once knew. Now he realizes who Jung-hyuk really is. Chul-kang's expression shifts. He knows he underestimated the young captain. Back in the village, Jung-hyuk's men loiter at his house, ostensibly fixing the water pump but really keeping an eye on Seri. The colonel tells Jung-hyuk that chasing conspiracies might skew his perspective, but Jung-hyuk suspects multiple fatal accidents caused by Kamaj trucks point to a secret government unit. He suspects his brother's death may not have been accidental. He quietly promises himself he'll uncover the truth, no matter the cost. That night, Chul-kang shows up during a random inspection. Unable to warn Seri due to the house phone rule, the squad calls Jung-hyuk, who races home in a high-ranking official's car, bypassing checkpoints. Time is tight, and Jung-hyuk knows one wrong move could expose everything. Wol-suk leads the inspection, discovering a South Korean rice cooker and a cheating husband. At Jung-hyuk's house, Seri browses his music books and finds a flyer from a Swiss music school with a familiar-looking younger Jung-hyuk. She is surprised to see a different, more peaceful side of him. She hides in the kimchi cellar just as Wol-suk and Chul-kang arrive. As he checks the cellar, he finds Seri and pulls a gun on her. The villagers gather as he leads her to his car. Everyone watches in shock, unsure of what's really going on. Just then, Jung-hyuk arrives, calmly approaches, and says, "I would appreciate it if you would put away the gun you're pointing at my fiancé."